In the Old South, Natchez was a place of grand mansions, velvet dinners, and endless cotton fields. But beneath the wealth lay hunger, chains, and silence. In 1820, one enslaved family turned the tables, in a way so shocking it still echoes through whispers of history. What would drive a family to turn their master into sausages? And why does this story refuse to die? Natchez, Mississippi. The year is 1820, and the river town glimmers like a jewel on the bluffs of the Mississippi. Wealthy planters ride in carriages lined with velvet. Silver candlesticks flicker on dining tables, where roasted fowl and honeyed pies are served to guests who laugh, toast, and wipe their lips with linen napkins. The air inside these mansions is perfumed with tobacco smoke, wine, and candle wax. Outside, just beyond the glow of chandeliers, another world breathes in dust, sweat, and silence. Fields stretch under the sun, endless rows of cotton bending in the wind like bowed backs. And in those fields, a family of 5 works until their hands split open and their throats burn raw. 2 women, 3 men, bound not by blood alone, but by the shared weight of slavery. Their days begin in darkness before the rooster crows, and end in deeper darkness after every ember in the master's house has cooled. They eat scraps barely fit for animals, cornbread hardened by staleness, broth thinned until it is almost water. Their bodies ache from lash marks that never fully heal, each scar a reminder of the master's whip and the overseer's delight in using it. At night, when the fields fall quiet, they gather close, listening to each other's shallow breathing, whispering stories that remind them of the people they once were before the auction block tore names and places from their mouths. Their master is a man of appetite, swollen with pride in his wealth. He strides through the house with heavy boots, his voice sharp as an axe. He treats cruelty as custom, domination as his birthright. His hands that lift wine glasses have also lifted whips, and his laughter at the supper table carries easily through the windows, cutting into the silence of the slave quarters like a knife. He feasts while his workers starve. He sleeps under sheets soft as clouds while they curl on the floor, bones pressing against dirt. He is the embodiment of Natchez's glittering lie, the illusion that grandeur is built without blood. The overseers mimic their master's contempt, each in their own way. One delights in punishment, swinging his lash not from duty, but from sport. Another takes pleasure in taunting the women, pressing too close, reminding them of their powerlessness. They drink from the same bottles that glisten on the master's table, though the liquor is cheaper, the pleasure no less cruel. To the family of 5, the world is a cage with no exit. The walls made of law, tradition, and fear. Yet even in silence, even under watchful eyes, something flickers within them. Their suffering, their hunger, their longing for dignity. It smolders, waiting for the breath of fate to turn it into flame. They watch, they endure, and they remember. Every meal they prepare but cannot eat, every sausage they grind for the master's table, every scent of smoked pork wafting from his kitchen, it all presses into their memories until the contrast becomes unbearable. The night lingers heavy. A dog barks in the distance. The master sleeps, belly full, oblivious to the restless stirring in the shadows. In this town of riches and ruin, history itself is holding its breath, for soon silence will break, and the family, no longer content to suffer, will begin to imagine the unthinkable. The spark comes without warning, though it has long been gathering. One evening, the master returns from town drunk, the sweet stink of brandy clinging to his clothes. He calls the family into the kitchen, demanding meat for his supper, though none remains. When told the larder is empty, He strikes one of the women across the face, splitting her lip, then turns to the others with a sneer that drips with scorn. He threatens to sell them, to scatter them to different plantations where they will never see each other again. His words cut deeper than the whip, for they know he can make them true with a single order. That night, as blood crusts on her mouth, a silence heavier than grief falls among the five. Fear begins to harden into something else. Each of the oppressors becomes more vividly drawn in their minds. The master, bloated by his own excess, who lords over them with the certainty of a man never once challenged. The overseer, who snaps his lash for the sound of it, eyes glittering with sadistic joy. The one who hovers near the women, his gaze an insult, his touch a threat. Each man is a different face of the same beast, their cruelties distinct, but united in their shared belief that the enslaved exist only to serve. The family begins to change in small, imperceptible ways. Their conversations at night shift from whispered laments to sharper murmurs, half sentences laced with resolve. Their glances carry unspoken meaning. The men linger longer near the tool shed, fingers brushing against hatchets and knives as if testing their weight. The women watch the kitchen fire with unusual intensity, the smell of grease and smoke stirring thoughts not of meals served to others, but of what might one day be prepared for themselves. Hunger gnaws constantly at their stomachs, but now hunger is no longer only physical. It is the hunger for justice, for reversal, for balance. The air around them thickens with tension. Storm clouds roll across the Natchez sky, thunder groaning in the distance, as though nature itself senses the shift. At the master's table, wine flows and laughter rises, but beneath the clinking of cutlery, something else hums, an undercurrent of waiting, of inevitability. The family walks in shadows, but their eyes gleam with a new light. Foreshadowing weaves itself into the daily rhythm. A knife left sharpened longer than necessary. A kettle boiling with no meal inside. The hiss of fat in a pan, lingering like a warning. To the unknowing eye, these are the motions of labor. To those who know, they are steps toward something far darker. Inside the family's minds, transformation grows. No longer do they see themselves as victims alone. They imagine themselves as agents of change, as hands that could remake fate, with fire, steel, and flesh. The betrayal has unlocked something fierce, and with every passing hour, their resolve deepens. They do not shout, they do not boast, they do not announce. They carry their plan in silence, because silence is the only shield they have left. Soon, the masters who once dined without fear will discover the price of their gluttony. Soon, the laughter that carried through the windows will fall into stillness, and soon, the family who tasted only scraps will serve a meal unlike any Natchez has ever known. The night chosen is neither grand nor unusual. It arrives quiet, the sky stretched with thin clouds, and the moon dim as though shielding its face. The master has returned late, weary from drink, leaving his boots carelessly at the door. The overseers slouch nearby, tired but alert enough to snarl should anyone linger too long. The house hums with its usual arrogance, the smell of brandy, grease, and wood smoke hanging heavy in the air. Yet within the shadows of the kitchen, the family's resolve has hardened into something unbreakable. They move with a silence that is not fear, but focus. Every gesture precise, every heartbeat measured. In the stillness, the plan unfolds. One of the men sharpens a knife, the rasp of steel against stone, cutting through the silence like a whisper of fate. Another stirs a pot of water until it hisses and spits, the steam curling upward like ghostly hands. The women gather spices, handfuls of sage and peppercorn, their scent sharp in the nose. They are not preparing a meal for their master. They are preparing justice. The overseer, who delights in his whip, is the first to fall. He enters the kitchen demanding food, irritation flashing in his eyes. But the family does not cower. A sudden movement, swift as breath. Rope tightens around his throat. He thrashes, feet scraping against the floor, eyes bulging with panic. The man who once laughed at their pain now knows silence. His body crumples to the earth without a sound. The second overseer, the one whose eyes lingered too long on the women, follows. He stumbles into the wrong corner, perhaps sensing something strange in the air, perhaps only drunk on arrogance. A blade flashes, clean and sure. He gasps once, hands clutching at the wound, before falling into stillness. The women look down at him, not with rage, but with cold finality, the way one might look at a pest finally crushed. The master wakes last. He staggers into the hall, bellowing at the noise, his voice thick with anger. But when he sees them, standing not as servants, but as executioners, his fury falters. His hand reaches for a whip that is no longer near. His words collapse into stammers. The family steps forward, calm, collected, their silence a verdict. He pleads, voice cracking, but the sound means nothing now. For every lash, for every hunger, for every scar and scream, he must answer. And he does. Slowly, methodically, stripped not just of life, but of the power he wielded so carelessly. Then begins the work. The grinding of meat, the hiss of fire, the stuffing of sausages, the twisting of casings. Each motion deliberate, precise, performed not with haste, but with a grim, ritual calm. The scent of sage and pepper fills the air, mingled with the iron tang of blood. It is grotesque, yes, but it is also purposeful, a reversal of years of degradation. For once, the kitchen belongs to them. For once, they decide what is served. Their silence remains unbroken. No shouts of triumph, no cries of vengeance. Only the steady rhythm of preparation, as if they are writing their names into history with each grind of the wheel. The master and his men are no longer untouchable. They are mortal. They are meat. When the night ends, the family sits in quiet exhaustion, staring at the smoke that rises from the chimney. Outside, the world still sleeps, unaware that the balance has shifted. The dawn will bring discovery. But for this moment, for these fleeting hours, the enslaved have claimed the unthinkable. They have become their own deliverance. Morning comes harsh and unrelenting. The first rays of light pierce the windows, spilling over the remnants of the night's grim ritual. The house that once rang with arrogance now hangs heavy with silence. It does not last. Neighbors come. Servants whisper. Overseers expected at other plantations do not arrive. And soon, the secret bleeds into the streets of Natchez. Shock spreads like wildfire. A master and his men, devoured by those he owned. The story mutates with every retelling. Some say they were poisoned, others that they were butchered in their sleep. But the detail that grips every ear, that strikes terror into the hearts of the planter class, is the sausages. The thought that the enslaved turned their master into food, that he was ground and spiced and smoked in the very kitchen he once ruled. This image clings, refusing to let go. The family does not run far. Hunters are dispatched, dogs unleashed. They are captured within days, dragged in chains back through the streets, where townsfolk stare in horror and fascination. Some spit at them, others whisper in awe. For though they are prisoners, they are no longer invisible. They have become legend in their own lifetimes. The punishment is swift, brutal, and public. The law makes an example of them, bodies broken as a warning to every enslaved soul in Natchez. Yet punishment cannot erase the story. If anything, It makes the tale burn brighter. Word travels along riverboats, across fields, whispered from mouth to mouth. Slaves speak of the family in hushed reverence, not for the act itself, but for the courage it took to strike back at those who seemed invincible. Among the planters, fear festers. At their grand suppers, wine glasses tremble in hands that once felt steady. Every bite of meat carries with it a trace of unease, every glance toward the kitchen tinged with suspicion. If one family could overturn the order of things so completely, who is to say others would not follow? The legend grows. In some tellings, the family is remembered as demons, consumed by madness. In others, they are martyrs, symbols of defiance carved into memory with fire and blood. The truth twists in the retelling, but the core remains. The powerless took power, if only for a night. Years pass, yet the story lingers. It is carried in whispers through cabins and fields, across generations. Parents tell their children not just of cruelty, but of those who refused to bow. It becomes a cautionary tale for masters and a spark of hope for the enslaved. Even as Natchez dresses its wounds in silence, history refuses to forget. And so the family becomes immortal, not in body, for their lives were crushed, but in story, in the legend of the sausages that tasted of rebellion. Their act remains one of the darkest, strangest chapters in the long history of bondage, a reminder that desperation breeds defiance, that oppression cannot silence the human hunger for justice. The tale still echoes today, unsettling and unforgettable. It forces us to ask not only what they did, but why. What drives human beings to cross the line between survival and horror? And in a world that feasts on the suffering of others, how many more stories like this lie buried, waiting to be told?